Welcome, my creeps. Welcome, new peeps, to the episode of Super Fast Tortoise. And today we have a great episode for you. And we start right now.
You want to go through all the... Andy cast unexpected results. What an interesting first pick. And recall the eons torn. And today for the weather forecast. What? Today let's talk about cube design.
There must be something valuable in this equation.
Welcome to Super Fast Tortoise. Welcome to Super Fast Tortoise.
Today's episode is called Making Sense of Your Cube.
Of your cube.
I have two questions I must ask you. First, what is something that you really desire in Magic the Gathering? Take some time to think about that. Now, second question. What is something you cannot have in Magic the Gathering? What is something you cannot have? Deep questions, I know. These two questions should not have answers that go together. These two questions should be parallel. Meaning, as different as those answers might be, they should be side by side.
Because in a grip,
Your goals
your goals should be achievable and reachable. And if there's something in Magic the Gathering that you cannot have in Cube, you can just proxy it. Because when building or designing a cube, the only restrictions that you have are the limitations that you set on yourself. Think about this. If there is something in Magic the Gathering that you cannot have, you are setting limitations on yourself. And limitations are confining. So, open your mind's door to completing your cube. Leave no door closed in your mind when it comes to completing your cube. If you have to proxy something, just proxy it. You don't have to have the card right away to make sure it works in your cube or not. Because in the end, what you need in your cube and what you want in your cube sometimes don't work. So sometimes spending the money on a card that don't work in your cube is not what you need. What you need is the ability to test your cube always. So find yourself comfortable with your cube and your skills with designing your own cube. Trust your brain to do what's right. You need to practice and draft your cube as much as possible. Proxies are okay in cube, because if you want to know if something works,
it's better to find out before you invest too much.
So may I suggest,
Go out of your comfort zone.
And study what you can of game theory. And study what you can of world building.
Because these two things are very important for designing your cube.
I mean, just look up the definitions of game theory and world building. The beginning knowledge is just knowing what something is.
Studying what you can of these two things will help you delve deeper into making a better cube.
Work to understand what makes a good Magic the Gathering set from a bad one. Work in understanding what makes a set work well with each other.
For example, I would suggest looking into all 3 Ravnica blocks as one whole set.
See how all the different mechanics between those sets just work together.
Find new concepts in Magic the Gathering to play and test around. Be comfortable with change. Be comfortable with learning more.
This is a skill that is required for building cube, is being comfortable with growth.
This in general may seem like a lot of work.
This brings out the best rewards.
Rewards.
You need the best rewards for building your cube, and that requires work and evolving your skills to be better, things will make more sense.
Things will make more sense.
Which, this is a great segue into today's video.
Make sense.
Make sense of your Magic the Gathering cube. Some people have looked at my cube list and said,
Man, this thing doesn't make sense. It's a sock drawer of keyword abilities and strategies that I don't understand.
They say the monocolored decks make no sense.
And the power levels seem unbalanced.
Then we have others who just can't wait to play my cube. Can't wait to try out my strategies, my synergies. You know, all the hard work I've built into the cube itself. So the natural question is, why do people think so differently about my cube? And after a lot of thinking, pondering, and brainstorming,
I've been able to boil it down to one simple concept.
Diversity in knowledge.
is people have different strengths, different strategies, different pieces of knowledge that they've gained through, and this is the key part of this,
their personal experiences.
Experience is key to building a cube. And sometimes you start without experience, but you gain experience just by starting and start building your cube. You want to reach tangible goals, so you got to make tangible goals.
You gotta get rid of the concept that there is things you cannot have.
If price is an issue on a card, proxy it.
Proxy it.
Proxy it.
Make the card work in your cube, or see if it doesn't belong in your cube. Sometimes the card you want has to be sacrificed from the cube because it doesn't fit the narrative of the cube.
The narrative of the cube.
This is a crucial part of testing your strengths and strategies. See, I've built my personal cube to be a multicolored cube. So the strategies in my cube are very multicolored specific.
And they're meant to mix and forge with each other in different strategies.
But if you think of my cube in the most monocolor of ways, you're going to get lost. And as I was building, I delved into studying game theory, and I've delved into studying world building. And this is something you, as a cube designer, should delve into. You don't have to get neck deep and go into college and learn all this stuff, especially for something as basic as a cube. But learning what you can of both these worlds will
Expand
your designing process to greater lengths. And this is all stuff you can find on YouTube. This is books you can buy from a store. These are tangible things. I mean, I can confidently say I don't know everything about world building, and I don't know everything about game theory, but I'm studying to know more and understand more. As the more I study into game theory, and the more I study into world building, helps me understand and make sense of my cube. Because while one thing does in one strategy, as much as it bugs you, has to make sense in its opposing strategy as well. Because when I design my cube, I want everything to work together, everything to be buildable together, and everything to give out the clear signs that they go in a deck that it's for. If you don't have these things in your cube, you're going to have a sock drawer. And you got to have a concept of what you want your cube to be. If you want a monocolored cube, you have to understand why it's a monocolored cube and put it in your monocolored cube. If you want something like a multicolored cube, you have to understand what makes a monocolored cube work and how it affects every card in the cube. And these things that I'm talking about show very well in my cube as you're drafting it. When you're drafting packs to make a deck in my cube, so many things work well together. So many things communicate to the players that they can put this card in their deck. They don't want this card in their deck.
Everything is so specific to a strategy,
but so malleable
that every card can go in almost every deck you build in the cube. This is something I can flex. I flex this on my friends. I'm like, this card can go in this deck, and this deck. And then this card can go in every deck you want to build, because I've worked hard at it. And this is something you can too.
And this is something you can too.
Like even people who've
Said my cube looks like a sock drawer and is a mess, and themes seem overpowered.
have drafted my cube, and at the end of it said,
Man, your cube really makes sense. Your cube speaks to me as I'm drafting.
things make sense.
Things make sense.
And I'm not lying to you. This is stuff that I've worked hard on, and it's paid off.
And this is why I'm telling you to look into game theory and world building.
You don't have to know all the specifics and everything about those subjects. You just want to expand your mind on understanding why they're there, understanding how it works. Like one of the biggest things that changed my perspective in game design was learning about the prisoner's dilemma.
The prisoner's dilemma.
The prisoner's dilemma.
That is a great subject to learn for game design and drafting cube. I've worked hard on using this concept in the drafting mechanics of the cube and for deck building.
This stuff is gold.
This stuff is gold.
So you want to delve and look into these things and look back at Magic the Gathering's own sets. And through your favorite sets and the sets you don't like, you want to study those sets. You want to see what makes a good Magic the Gathering set and a bad Magic the Gathering set. And I would suggest going through the whole Ravnica block. Each block, all 3 blocks, and just kind of
Mash them together.
and take those cards and take out the cards that you would never play or never want to see and get all the good stuff and mash them together and see why they work.
Why they work.
And then one fun thing I like to do is I like to take a set like Kamigawa and take a set like Dark Ascension, pull out all the cards that I find useless for the sets, mash them together and see why they work. Find out what doesn't work. This stuff is good. It is fun stuff to do when you're a nerd like me.
Nerd like me.
Also,
Doing things like this will bring up new concepts of gameplay, game design, and game theories of your own to build and construct in your cube, bringing you up a broader, vast amount of knowledge of what you want in your cube, helping you walk you step by step. This knowledge takes you on a journey that's just completely unavoidable for becoming a better cube designer.
Cube designer.
Cube designer.
Another thing that you want to do, you have your play group. You have the people who will definitely play your cube. You want to study all your friends' personalities. You want them to draft from a cube. You want to do drafts with them at your local game store. Do it as much as possible just to learn their gameplay strategies, the things they love to pick, the things they hate to pick. Learn the decks they like to build. Learn the habits of the decks they love to build. And this will bring on a
Flavor.
of Magic the Gathering that you never tasted before, because you are stepping outside of yourself to grow as a person and understand the individuality of different people and their playstyles. And this fits in the cube designing aspect. It fits in the cube world building aspect as something very flavorful.
Very flavorful.
I guarantee it's a great thing to step into. And this is Charlie, by the way.
she's a cute kitty. Most of the people in my playgroup who play for my cube play in Modern, Legacy, and Commander. They love those 3 formats a lot. They're their favorite formats. So when I studied my playgroups, personalities, and studied my playgroups' different styles of gameplay, decks they like to build, etc., etc.,
I was able to incorporate their favorite cards in the cube. I found ways to get them hyped up as a draft. They'll be looking through a pack and they'll be like, that's a great card, and they'll be flustered because there's so many great options in their packs that they cannot pass. But they have to choose one card. And it always gets me excited and happy that they're enjoying the cube experience
Enjoying the cube experience.
when they are doing these things. But studying other players who love the game as much as I do, and learning what makes the game fun for them helps my cube design make more sense to players, because I was able to reach out to them, because I was able to make the game better for them in the cube. I mean, I've had my friends go through my cube list and they were shocked with all the deck opportunities they have to draft from packs, all the differences, the changes, even the subtle changes from one deck being different just by a couple cards. It really gripped their imaginations and wanted them to play more. My cube made them want to play more. So another question I must ask, how do you make a cube make sense? And I retort with, I simply just divided my cube into two. Good versus evil, basically. But not really good versus evil. I went with enchantments matter and reanimate as my two big themes of the cube. With every individual monocolor in the cube, like mono green, mono red, mono black,
I made what they did make sense by doing what they do at the basic level.
and expanded upon that
with the multicolored cards that fit the primary color of green, primary color red, and so on and so forth.
because the core function of the cube is to make sense and go off the basic knowledge that everybody knows. For example, like green, big creatures and ramp. Red, hasty creatures and big late game bombing spells.
And burn.
Even though I don't like burn, I made my burn minimum in my cube. But people understand that burn's a part about that. Black, reanimate? Yes. And also good for killing creatures with kill spells. Also you have white, which I went mono enchantments. Blue, drawing cards. I actually held off on the counter spells and did very few of those. These are things people grip on very easily and very simple. The concepts of the core mechanics in my cube are so simple to grab onto that people just snatch them up. When I get to the multicolored cards, that's when people start grabbing onto the strategies and synergies of the different flavors of good versus evil, enchantments versus reanimate. They figure out the answers to the questions that they're given, and the questions that they're given by the monocolored cards are the things that say, hey, we can build this deck.
Let's go this way, or let's go that way.
Everything directs a player into
The deck building process.
The deck building process.
The deck building process.
and that makes sense.
And that makes sense. And that makes sense.
And in the same vein of thinking, if blue draws, red can rummage. If white's about enchantments, it can have good removal. If black's about reanimating, it can draw too. Green can draw, but it's about supporting the other creatures. These are other concepts I added to the cube. So everything's not a one single note beat. Everything's about making sense of a cube. Especially in a multicolored cube, you got to figure out what colors can be more supportive and what other colors going to be more dominant. And these will help people step into the multicolored building strategies. These will help people step into the multicolored strategies that are offered to them. And these are things you learn in game theory. These are things that work in world building, because everything has to communicate a deck to win.
To win.
Another advantage to studying game theory world building as you're building your cube is the more you get more fluent with these concepts, the easier it becomes to see your flaws, your weaknesses in cube design.
Flaws, your weaknesses in cube design.
Flaws, your weaknesses in cube design.
Maybe just have this card in your cube that's just a pet card that really needs to be taken out. Sometimes you need to ask your friends for advice because you're not seeing what you need, but sometimes you want to surprise your friends with a good combo, so you have to make the choices on your own. And as you build your cube, keep in mind, you need a motive to build your cube. You need the motivation behind your design. These are things you can find through things you love, but also by expanding your knowledge. You need to flex your brain muscles. You need to work out those critical thinking muscles. Sometimes you need to do things separately from Magic, like playing board games. Playing board games will expand your knowledge of different mechanics, because as you play different board games, you can see the magic stuff you love, like resource management. Also, you can see different things, like different strategies you can employ in your own card game, and different cards that can mimic different board games that you just have fun playing.
Fun playing.
Fun playing.
Because in the end, playing different board games, the cube is a board game in a box. It's a game in the box concept. And that makes sense. So make sense of board games. Make sense of game theory. Make sense of world building. And make sense of your cube design.
Of your cube design.
Of your cube design. Of your cube design.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Now, for today's non-sponsored advertisement. If you live in the Cedar Rapids area of Iowa, you need to check out
Turtle Power Games.
a vintage and collectible shop found in the Lindale Mall. They buy and sell collectible toys, Transformers, comic books, manga, video games, DVDs, Blu-rays, board games, also most important to me, trading card games like Magic the Gathering, and a whole lot more. They even have an in-store area for in-store play. This store is amazing and has so much to offer. You can check out their website and also find their Facebook and Instagram pages. Tweet them on Twitter. All these links are in the description box below. What are you doing? Why have you not left the couch yet?
Turtle Power Games.
Well, it's called the internet, and it's completely revolutionized the way we live and access vital information. For example, have a look at this.
So today, we are picking a winner for the Deck Tech contest. First, we're going to filter out duplicate comments. Then we want comments with the text, "I'm a creep." Only 2 comments. A few people have taken themselves out of the contest. Well, let's pick a winner. And the winner is Katie and Mick Witt. Woo woo, we have a winner. And the commander they chose was Aisling Pilgrim. Congratulations. I mean, seriously, congrats. So since we only had 2 tickets in the contest, here's what I'm going to do, because I love my subscribers. I will do a viewer suggested deck tech for Tim Bister with his choice of Kirk, son of Yawgmoth also. It will come later, but you deserve it, because you are all a part of the creep. And I appreciate every one of you. And I thank you very much.
Wow. Now that's vital information.
I know, it's amazing.
You are watching Super Fast Tortoise.
Now, on to the Tortoise Top 10 Cards for Cube, featuring Dungeons & Dragons, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. Now, these 10 cards I favor the most from the set. There are a lot of great cards in the set, but these cards I like the most. I favor these, great for draft, and they're my personal favorites. So if you don't see a favorite card of yours on the list, let me know what your favorite cards are in the comments down below. And we start with Boots of Speed. This equipment is aggressive and cheap, great for red, and great for those big, beefy creatures. It makes your mid-game creatures more dangerous and more fearsome. Then we have Deadly Dispute. Just a good old-fashioned black draw spell that requires you to
Sacrifice a creature or artifact.
and gives you one of your mana back through a treasure. We have to include the Dragon Turtle because of the flavor, and I'm Tortoise. But also as a decent removal spell in blue that you can toy around with. This card is fun.
Oh, the snaps!
We have Instrument of the Bards, which lets us tutor for creatures early and mid-game really well, and basically stops late-game stalls and late-game top deck scenarios. I also include the Vorpal Sword. It's really good for the aggressive low to ground Rakdos strategies, and also includes a fun win condition that surprisingly works later game, but also is not the highlight of the card. It's all about that +2 buff and death touch.
Here we have Old Nabo, a green legendary dragon that just makes combat interesting with big trampling creatures netting you treasure tokens.
I have to include
Xanathar, Guild Kingpin.
He changes combat on your turn and gives you extra cards to dirtle with. I love it. And we have to include Tasha's Hideous Laughter, because in 40 card decks, this card can win late games or just wreck strategies. So it is included on my top favorite cards.
Inferno of the Starmounts.
I just love that he's a 6/6 for 6 mana and can't be countered and has flying and haste. This is a classic style dragon and also includes the classic ability Fire Breathing. And to end this list we have
Aberneth Driglich.
The fact that he's built with a self-recursion ability is really solid. Not only that, he has flash, and he's a freaking zombie dragon. A zombie dragon! This card is insane to me, and I love it and makes games more fun.
Maybe someday we could become friends. There's still one more thing I must do before I go. Yes, and yes. And...
Thank you guys so much.
We really appreciate, everything.
God, I love